Hi there. In this video, we're going to be adding and subtracting fractions. So let's talk about what we need in order to add and subtract fractions. So the one thing that we need when we add and subtract fractions is a common denominator. Okay, so in my first example, what I want to look at is the bottom part of each fraction. And I notice that I have a 5 in the bottom part of each fraction. Here I have a common denominator. In my second example, I have a 2 and a 4. These numbers are different. These are not common denominators. All right, so this one I can add easily. This one requires another step. And so when I add fractions, I want to add my numerators. Once I have a common denominator, I add my numerators and I keep that same denominator. So what I do down here for this example, because I have a common denominator already, I'm going to simply just add my numerators. And I'm going to write it as 1 plus 2 over the common denominator of 5. And then all I want to do is just add these two numbers, which is going to give me 3/5. Okay, and that's my answer. Now over here, when I don't have a common denominator, I have to turn one number into the other, all right? And what I can do is I know that if I take 2 and I multiply it by 2, it's going to give me 4. So my first step here is going to be to multiply the top numerator and denominators both by 2, all right? And when we multiply fractions, we just want to multiply across, okay? So 2 times 1 is going to give me a value of 2. 2 times 2 is going to give me a value of 4, and then plus 1/4. Now what I've done here is I haven't changed the value here. If I take 1 divided by 2, and I'm going to write this over here, the decimal value of 1/2 is 0.5. If I take 2 and divide it by 4, I'm going to get 0.5. So the only thing I did was I changed the numbers, but my ratio and my fraction is the same. I have the same value, okay? But what I did was I manipulated 1/2 to give me different numbers so that I could then add these two fractions. All right, so now I've got 2 fourths plus 1/4. I have a common denominator, so I'm going to write that as 2 plus 1 over a common denominator of 4. 2 plus 1 is then going to give me 3, keep my common denominator of 4, and that's my answer, okay? Now in my next example, I've got 1/3 plus 1/4. All right, so at this point, what I want to do is I want to get a common denominator between 3 and 4. Now I can't multiply 3 by any number to get 4. And I can't multiply 4 by any number to get 3. All right, so what I want to do is think about, well, what could I do to get that? And so what I want to do is think about this, is use the term the least common multiple, the LCM. All right, so here's what I've got. I'm going to find the multiples of 3 and the multiples of 4. The multiples of 3 are going to be 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. The multiples of 4 are going to be 4, 8, 12, 16. Now I'm looking for the least common multiple, the common number in both of these lists, the smallest one, and that's going to be 12 in both lists. Now what I have to think about is I have to say, okay, well if I take 3 times 4, that's going to give me 12. If I take 4 times 3, that's also going to give me 12. So what that's going to do, finding out this number, is going to tell me, what my common denominator is going to be. In this case, it's going to be 12, and also tells me what I need to multiply in order to get 12. So one of the rules of thumb is that I simply take the other denominator and multiply it by the top and bottom part of my fraction here. So if I multiply this by 3 over 3, and I multiply this fraction by 4 over 4, then that's going to give me a common denominator. So let's multiply our fractions. 4 times 1 is going to give us 4. 4 times 3 is going to give us 12. Plus 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 3 is 12. So notice what I've done is I've created a common denominator, and all I want to do now is just add my numerators. So I've now got 4 plus 3 all over the common denominator of 12. 4 plus 3 is just going to give me 7 over 12, and that's my answer. And there's no other number that I can divide into both 7 and 12 to simplify that. Now, in my last example, what I want to talk about here is operating with positive and negative fractions, okay? So all the things that we've learned so far is going to help us answer this question. Now, again, the difference between what I'm asking you here in this question and saying like, well, -3 minus -5 is really no different, okay? I've got a negative number and I'm subtracting a negative number, the same as I would here. So on something like this, let's just recap, but I would write this as -3 plus +5, okay? And then I could use a number line to answer this question or whatever, but I have to use what I learned in the previous sections to answer this, all right? And I could rewrite this as 5 plus -3, 5 plus quantity -3, or I could write this as 5 minus 3. I got all these different options for what I can do here to answer this question, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing for this, all right? So over here, the first thing I'm going to do, because I'm taking a negative and subtracting another negative, I'm going to rewrite this as -1/3 plus 1/5. Now, what I don't have is I don't have a common denominator. And if I think of my least common multiple for both of those lists, I've got my list for 3, I've got my list for 5. All right, I'm going to write out my multiples, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Ooh, there we go. And I've got 5, 10, and 15. All right, so 15 is my least common multiple, which is going to be my common denominator. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the opposite fraction by the opposite denominator. All right, so this fraction, I'm going to multiply this by 3. So if I multiply that fraction by 3 over 3, and if I multiply this by 5 over 5, all right, that's going to give us what I need. Now, in this case, I've got 5 times -1. Remember, I'm multiplying here, okay? I'm not subtracting. So 5 times -1 is going to give me a -5. Remember, a negative times a positive is going to stay negative. 5 times 3 is 15. Plus 1 times 3 is 3 over 5 times 3, which is 15. Now what I have is I have a common denominator of 15. That's what I'm looking for. Once I have that, I can just simply add my numerators. So from here, I've got -5 plus 3 over 15. Now, if you want to sit here and write out a number line to answer this, that's totally fine. If I go to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and then I go to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, yeah, and that's going to give me a value of -2, all right? So -5 plus 3 gives me -2. Now, if you can do that math in your head, that's great. If not, and you need to use a number line, guys, use your resources, all right? So I've got -2 over 15, and that's my answer. So I know that this is a long video. I know that this is probably one of the harder things that a lot of us struggle with, but I want you to see that, you know, every single one of these I'm doing the same thing. Do I have a common denominator? Yes or no? Find a common denominator. Manipulate your fractions. Get them to do what you want them to do. And then, once you have a common denominator, just add your numerators, and there you go. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot. Bye!